The last time I spoke on Wednesday evening, I had short notice, so I pulled out a rerun, I guess you would say. And nobody acted like they had heard it before, so we may have another rerun tonight. So if you've heard it before, I apologize. Maybe you'll hear something new, and if you haven't, well, then it's new to you. Tonight, a new disease is spreading. It's not a disease we can simply diagnose, see a medical doctor, buy an expensive prescription, and cure rapidly. No, it's much stronger and deeper than that. It is a disease that can affect your soul. Having swept through the secular world with a great deal of ease, this disease has now latched onto and begun to affect those susceptible Christians who fall victim to its ever-present and increasing harm. Many of you have heard of the disease cirrhosis. Maybe even some of you have known someone with this terrible disease. Cirrhosis of the liver, a disease in which the liver changes form and becomes hard and rigid and in effect shuts down, not able to perform its everyday duties. Such things as viruses, alcoholism, heart disease, and other causes can lead to this often deadly disease. But tonight I want to talk about another disease, that being cirrhosis of the giver. Many of us have come into contact with those who are afflicted by this disease, or may grapple with it ourselves in our daily lives. No, cirrhosis of the giver is not a new disease. In fact, it has been around since the beginning of time. We can look back on the early days of man and see that as soon as God created man and allowed him the ability to flourish, there has always been a propensity for people to become greedy and become hardened in their giving to others. The disease cirrhosis of the giver is talked about in great length in our Bibles and may have been first discovered and diagnosed to a great extent in AD 34 by the husband and wife team of Ananias and Sapphira in Acts 5 verses 1 through 11. In Acts 5, we are introduced to Ananias and his wife Sapphira and how they were stricken with this deadly disease. And we all see what became of them in that chapter for begrudgingly keeping back a portion of that which was God's. What we find in reading this story is that cirrhosis of the giver can be closely related to greed. Instead of focusing on what they had been blessed with by God and giving back a portion of it to spread the gospel and provide a benevolent gift to help those less fortunate than they were, Ananias and his wife decided to hold back and fall victim to greed, while trying to pass themselves off as something as what they were not. But we see from the passage that God was not fooled by their hardened hearts, and we see how they were punished for it. But let us look more closely at this disease. Just as cirrhosis is a term that refers to a type of hardening that renders the liver unable to function as it normally would, cirrhosis of the giver does much the same thing. Cirrhosis of the giver is defined as an acute condition that renders the patient's hands immobile when he or she is called on to move them in the direction of his wallet or purse, and from thence to the offering plate or into the hands of someone in need. This strange malady is clinically unobservable in such surroundings as the mall, the supermarket, a restaurant, or other such entertaining locations. Some try to use a fake remedy by pointing out to the patients that income tax deductions can be claimed for extra generous giving in hopes of making their giving seem worthwhile. The best therapy, though, and that which leads to a sure and lasting cure, is to get the individual's heart right with God. The affliction is actually a symptom of a more basic need of the soul. Therefore, there is hope for all who may be inclined to fall victim into the snare of this spiritually deadly disease. First, let us look at some of the prescribed medications by God. The first is to use frequent doses of Romans 12, verse 1. It reads, "I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that ye present yourselves, your bodies, a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service." Next, we follow with a dose of Luke 9, verse 23. "And Jesus said to them all, If any man will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me." Then we add in 2 Corinthians 9, verses 6 through 7. that tells that he who soweth sparingly shall reap sparingly, and he that soweth bountifully shall reap also bountifully. Every man according as he purposeth in his heart, so let him give, not grudgingly or of necessity, for God loveth a cheerful giver. We add in a dash of Luke 6, verse 38, which tells us, Give, and it shall be given unto you. For with the same measure that ye mete withal, it shall be measured to you again. Now with all this we add a heaping tablespoon of Philippians 4, verse 19. But my God shall supply all your need according to his riches in glory by Christ Jesus. If we follow all of these instructions by God on giving, then we will certainly flourish and never fall into the trap of becoming hardened in our giving. But I ask, are we as Christians truly doing what the Lord would have us to do in giving? Many people set apart a certain amount each and every week to give back to the Lord. Even though it's not required in the Bible, many of you may practice the tithing method, or that of giving back a tenth of what the Lord has given to you. We see that in the Old Testament, even where people gave of the best of their flocks and herds. But do we do the same today? We could all look to my left at the record board of offerings. We could do a little number crunching and see just what the average is that a member gives on Sunday morning. But giving runs much deeper than our own pocketbooks. Of course, we all know the ways in which we should give. Never should we get caught in the trap of simply considering our duties over and done with by simply reaching into our pockets and giving an abundant amount of money and think we are off the hook. Not only are we commanded to give of our resources in the offering plate, but we must also give of our time, talents, and love to one another. Giving is a much deeper word than to simply think of it in a monetary sense. Take a look at Luke chapter 6, verse 30, in which the Lord tells us to give to every man that asketh of us. Also Matthew 25, verses 35 and 36, where the Lord tells of giving meat to the hungry, drink to the thirsty, clothes to those that are naked, and helping those others that are in distressed circumstances of life. We should never let ourselves fall into the same trap in which Ananias and Sapphira did, nor should we let our giving be corrupted by this so-called cirrhosis of the giver. We should give of our money, resources, time, talents, and love. In the same manner, are we giving our lives as givers back to God? Are we taking time to pray without ceasing, giving of our time by reading our Bibles daily, giving of our love one to another by helping a brother or sister in need, or giving of our talents by assisting in church duties, or by giving in the community and thereby bringing others to Christ through our example? I hope that tonight's lesson will help us avoid this deadly disease that will affect our daily ability to give. Giving is much more than simply giving a part of our earning every Sunday morning. Just as the early Christians were held accountable in the first century for their inability to give, likewise we must work to give of ourselves as a whole each and every day in our service to God. Tonight, if you have a need to come forward and become a good steward of God's gifts by becoming baptized into Christ, or if you have in some other way turned away from Him, you have that opportunity to come forward tonight.